Hey there, welcome back to Popular Crime. If you're new to our channel, welcome. I'm Heather, and today we're diving into our Modern Mysteries case files. In August of 1994, over the span of 3 weeks, gelatinous rain fell from the sky in the small town of Oakville, Washington. Many residents became sick, and we still do not have an explanation as to what caused it. In fact, we have more questions than answers. Now, Oakville is a small town in Grays Harbor County, Washington. The population is around 700, give or take, and it's located about 50 miles inland, southwest of the state capital, Olympia. This is a town where everyone knows everyone, and its main industries are lumber and farming. Like most of the Pacific Northwest, this is an area that gets a lot of rain, as in, it rains about 157 days out of the year. But when it began raining on August 7th, 1994, residents immediately knew something was wrong. What was falling from the sky wasn't water. It was this clear, gelatinous goo about the size of grains of rice, and it quickly blanketed the area. Police officer David Lacey was patrolling the area around 3 a.m. when the gelatinous rain fell from the sky onto his windshield. When he put the wipers on, the substance spread out all over the windshield, making it impossible for him to see anything. So he quickly pulled over, put on a pair of latex gloves, and began moving the goo away. He later described it as being mushy and like having jello in your hands. Another resident named Dottie Hearn stepped outside onto her lawn in the morning and noticed it then. At first glance, she thought it was hail. She picked it up with her hands only to discover that it had this gooey gel kind of texture. Now, it would soon be discovered that this thick gelatinous substance covered the entire area, about 20 square miles, and it didn't occur only once. It rained this gooey material in August 6 times over the course of 3 weeks. Residents were baffled.
I got sick, my wife got sick, my daughter, everybody that lived here got sick.
Everybody in the whole town came down with like a flu, only it was a really hard flu. It didn't last like 7 days, it lasted like 7 weeks to 2 or 3 months.
And what's even more disturbing is that everyone who encountered the substance became ill fast. On the first day, both Officer David Lacey and Dottie Hearn came in contact with it. They became mysteriously ill. Officer Lacey described being violently ill like he had never been before. He said he could hardly breathe. Later, it would be discovered that most, if not all, of the residents that came in contact with the substance became ill quickly. Residents described flu-like symptoms like having difficulty breathing, extreme vertigo, blurred vision, and feelings of being nauseous. They also reported that it wasn't like a typical flu because it lasted longer, about 2 to 3 months. There were also many reports of animals dying shortly after coming in contact with the goo. Dottie Hearn ended up in the hospital for 3 days and was diagnosed with a severe inner ear infection. When she was being brought to the hospital, her daughter, Sunny Barclift, remembered the strange rain they had earlier that morning and wondered if that had anything to do with her mother's sudden illness.
For some reason, as we were going out the door, I remembered the substance, and I wondered if perhaps it might have had some sort of an effect on her, if it might have made her sick. So I opted at that moment to take a sample of this gelatinous material to the hospital.
Once the sample was brought to the hospital, a lab technician examined it and was perplexed. His findings were that the substance had human white blood cells in it, but he couldn't identify what it was or how it came from the sky. The hospital quickly sent the sample to Washington State Department of Health for further examination. Microbiologist Mike McDowell analyzed the material and found 2 types of bacteria in it, one of which lives in the human digestive tract.
We had heard that there was some illness. We were very conservative on how we handled it, so we moved it into our medium containment facility.
Mike McDowell is the state microbiologist assigned to test the mysterious gelatin.
We found 2 organisms, Pseudomonas fluorescens and Enterobacter cloacae.
They are bacteria capable of causing serious illness.
They could cause, urinary tract infections, maybe even septicemia.
But it's hard to believe the toxic organisms came from outer space. McDowell has another theory about the jelly.
It didn't change. And I said, this has got to be some kind of a matrix.
A matrix can be any kind of carrier in which other substances are embedded. They occur naturally, like the protective jelly found around amphibian eggs. But they can also be man-made.
They can carry nerve agents, chemicals, organisms, viruses.
Shortly after analyzing the substance, Mike McDowell raised his concerns to his superiors.
Soon after McDowell raises his suspicions, he says the sample disappeared.
I came in and the material was not where it was supposed to be. I asked management what happened to it, and the exact words, "Do not ask." This material, and I have no proof, one way or the other, was manufactured by someone for some purpose, and for some reason, Oakville was chosen as a test site.
Now the sample has gone missing. In Mike McDowell's 30 years of service, this was the first time a sample that he was responsible for just up and mysteriously vanished. But there was still one sample left. Remember Sonny Barcleft? Almost a year after this strange occurrence, a sample that she saved and stored in her freezer was sent to AmTest laboratories. Tim Davis, a microbiologist, studied the sample. He concluded, quote, "I saw what I think was a eukaryotic cell, which is basically a cell that has a definable nucleus and is found present in most animals," end quote. So far the information we have is that this was a substance that had cells found in animals in it, which rained down on Oakville covering 20 square miles. Or it's possibly some kind of man-made matrix that's a carrier that allows other substances to be embedded into them, like nerve agents, chemicals, organisms, or viruses, which also fell from the sky covering 20 square miles. Now, interestingly, at this time, residents of Oakville reported that they were seeing a lot of military activity in the air. Many residents recall seeing black, unmarked planes and helicopters in the area flying lower and slower than normal. Now, the Air Force did confirm that they had been performing bombing runs over the Pacific during this time in August, but they also denied having any knowledge of the clear gelatinous substance and either creating it or dispersing it. Now, one theory that's come up is that the blobs were jellyfish pieces. People have speculated that perhaps the military disrupted schools of jellyfish while they were doing their bombing runs over the ocean, and then the theory is that the jellyfish were launched into the atmosphere and came down as rain. But they would have had to travel inland 50 plus miles, and it would have smelled horrible, and it didn't. It was odorless. Plus, this event happened 6 times over a period of 3 weeks, so this explanation is very unlikely. Some people believe it was a military experiment designed to test the kind of damage a biological attack would have on U.S. soil. And I know this sounds crazy, and it is, but as we've been researching different cases for our Modern Mysteries episodes, we've come across some shocking experiments that our own government has done in the past. So this theory is very interesting to me. Another theory that was quickly rebuffed was that the blobs were the result of drops of concentrated fluid waste from a passing airplane toilet. Now, the FAA said that all fluid waste from commercial plane toilets are always dyed blue, and we know that this was not the case in Oakville. All the gel was clear, and if it had been airplane toilet waste, it would have had to have happened 6 times over the span of 3 weeks. Now, there is a real thing called star jelly, and we will cover it in a future video, but star jelly is described as a gelatinous substance sometimes found on grass or even on branches of trees that are very similar to what was found in Oakville, but I haven't seen any reports of people falling ill when coming into contact with it. According to folklore, star jelly is deposited on the earth during meteor showers, and in August of 1994, the Perseid meteor shower would have been coming to an end. However, it doesn't really explain why the goo would have just been found in this one 20-mile square area, why there would be so much of it, and why people and animals got sick. Also, star jelly has been known to dissipate faster than the blobs in Oakville did. As I was researching this, I wondered if it was possible that it could have been some kind of weird weather experiment gone wrong. I mean, is that even a thing? Turns out it's very much a thing. Weather modification is being used today in the form of cloud seeding. Weather modification, also known as weather control, is the act of intentionally manipulating or altering the weather. The most common form of weather modification is cloud seeding, which increases rain or snow, usually for the purpose of increasing the local water supply. Weather modification can also have the goal of preventing damaging weather, such as hail or hurricanes, from occurring, or of provoking damaging weather against the enemy, as a tactic of military or economic warfare like Operation Popeye, where clouds were seeded to prolong the monsoon in Vietnam. Weather modification in warfare has been banned by the United Nations under the Environmental Modification Convention. So let's say there was some kind of weather experiment happening. How would gelatinous goo end up falling from the sky 6 times over the course of 3 weeks in a 20 square mile area in some kind of experiment? What if the clouds were seeded with something that when mixed with water would create a gel-like substance? Interestingly, I came across a patent that was filed in 2000 specifically for modifying the weather using polymers. The abstract reads, "A method for artificially modifying the weather by seeding rain clouds of a storm with suitable cross-linked aqueous polymer. The polymer is dispersed into the cloud and the wind of the storm agitates the mixture, causing the polymer to absorb the rain. This reaction forms a gelatinous substance which precipitate to the surface below, thus diminishing the cloud's ability to rain." I will link the actual patent down below, and I'm also going to link this summary from Justia Patents. You can see here it's the same patent number, I just think it's easier to understand on Justia. The summary reads, "The instant application discloses a method of modifying weather by seeding storm clouds with a polymer. The storm clouds are seeded by dispersing a superabsorbent polymer into the cloud in sufficient quantities to cause large absorption of water. The reaction of the water with the polymer creates a gel-like substance that precipitates to the surface, thus causing an internal constriction with the cloud to lessen storm velocities." So let's say it was some kind of experiment, trying to reduce the amount of rain in an area where there's traditionally a lot of rain. Maybe those polymers were toxic and that caused people to get sick and animals to die. Now, obviously, I'm just speculating because this is still a mystery. We are not closer to understanding the Oakville Blobs, and I have more questions than I did when I first heard about them. But what do you think? What caused the Oakville Blobs? Let me know your theories in the comments down below. But that is going to do it for today. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our uploads. And as always, stay safe, keep investigating, and we'll see you soon.